Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I just want to have a little bit of an informal chat with you. I really would love for this to be a well-rounded discussion with your input because this is just some things I've been pondering lately. And I'm going to share with you kind of how it's come about and my thoughts. And I'd really love to hear your thoughts about this. And if maybe I'm just overthinking it because I tend to be an overthinker, but I've just kind of come around to this concept and this idea that maybe Instagram, TikTok, social media in general is kind of like melting our brains a little bit, and just it's got me questioning whether or not we're lacking in self-identity, and social media is the reason we're lacking in self-identity, truthfully, without even knowing that we're lacking in it. I'd really love to hear your input on this in the comments down below, because when I think about my own experience with identity, and you know, I've shared a video before about how I shifted my identity and how you can shift your identity, but I think with the start of summer coming, I mean, you guys, a lot of you are in summer right now. I've seen a lot of creators talk about this idea of kind of being your best self in summer and kind of creating an identity. And like, I've just seen a lot of content creators talk about identity and kind of like living your best life and like this era of your life in summer. And just some of the creators I'm seeing, they're kind of almost seems like they're shifting identity like every single season. And it's a little bit alarming, and it's just kind of got me thinking about this whole idea of self-identity and whether or not social media is the reason we're lacking in it without even realizing we're lacking in it. I've even fallen into this trap, you know, the whole like that girl trend, like the that girl thing. I've even fallen into that trap before, but really, who is that girl? Like she's not you. Like, who is that girl? Why are we striving to be that girl or that woman, as opposed to kind of really more just connecting and being in touch with our own identity and who we are. And I know I'm taking this maybe a little bit deeper than it needs to be, but it's just something that I've really been pondering lately, especially with, you know, my channel and my content evolving. And I really think back to a few years ago when you may have seen that video. I'm not sure if it's privated now, but if it is, sorry. If it's not though, I'll have it linked. But I did a whole video where I was unfollowing influencers, and I just went on this whole kind of like pause from social media just because I really had enough. Like, I'd really hit a breaking point, and I think I was still uploading to YouTube at that point. It was a crazy amount of influencers I unfollowed, and I just stopped watching other people's lives and I stopped following other people's lives. And truly, my head has never felt clearer. And then it got me thinking about the generation, like my generation, who have literally grown up with social media from the age of like, you know, 15, 16, 17. And even now kids younger are growing up with social media. And I just wonder if we as a generation are lacking in self-identity because we spend so much time, so many hours of our day looking at other people's lives on social media. And let me know in the comments down below what you think, because again, I don't know, like this is something I'm pondering and I really just want to have a bit of a discussion with you. But truthfully, I don't know if you can ever truly know yourself and truly feel like who you are is who you are unless you just take a break and step away from that noise for long enough. And I think that, and I've often encouraged this for everyone, I think that everyone should take a break from social media, and everyone should step away from social media at least once in their life, you know, whether it be for 1, 2, 3, 4 months. God, 6 months would be ideal, but just to really truly connect with yourself, especially if you're someone who's grown up with social media. I just ponder and I wonder, how can you truly know who you are when you're surrounded by so much noise? You know, if you're ever feeling lost or ever feeling bouts of depression or just confusion about your life, it could be coming from a lack of self-identity. And I truly think that's where it came from for me. You know, I've never had a clearer head, and God, I've never had a clearer idea of my style than when I stepped away from social media for long enough and I stopped looking at what other people wore and other people's lives. This kind of follows on from what I mentioned in the beginning about this whole thing, and I've seen it quite a bit with certain creators, and I've seen quite a few videos, and they're very inspiring, don't get me wrong, they're very inspiring, but it's this idea of being able to start a whole new chapter and kind of enter a new era of your life and almost enter a new identity of your life. And I think there are definitely elements of that concept that are very inspiring and very motivating, but I also think we need to be really careful about kind of treading over this line of, okay, it's exciting to start a new chapter, it's exciting to want to grow, but I also think on the flip side, it can kind of get into a little bit of an unhealthy territory when you're literally trying to switch your identity like every season. And you know, there's a particular creator, she was talking about her summer identity and who she was going to be this summer, and she created a Pinterest board. And again, like I said, I love Pinterest, okay? I love Pinterest for inspiration. I find it very uplifting and very inspiring. But I think, again, like much like everything in this world, it can have like good and bad. She was talking about how she has decided that she wants to enter her, I think she called it her cowgirl era, some era that she decided she wanted to enter. And it was because she'd found a picture of a woman on Pinterest that was wearing cowgirl boots. And like, you know, it was from, you couldn't see her face. It was just like this, it was the way it was shot was just her back turned with these cowgirl boots. And yeah, it just kind of, she wanted to almost revolve her whole identity around this particular Pinterest image and this whole kind of cowgirl aesthetic. And again, this is a conversation I really want to have with you, because I do feel like absolutely there's nothing wrong with being inspired, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to, like, you know, get involved in new interests or switch up your personal style or things like that. But I think it's maybe a little bit delusional. Like, I'm just thinking for my life personally, it's a little bit delusional if I was to want to kind of switch my identity to being a literal cowgirl. I love country music. Don't get me wrong, I love country music, and I would wear Western boots, but I don't think wearing cowgirl boots makes me a cowgirl. And also I live like in Australia, not in the outback. I live by the beach. So I just think, I'm almost wondering if there's an element of this that is almost a little bit delusional and unhealthy. And again, I'm not at all saying that anyone who watches this content is delusional, unhealthy. It's just something I'm kind of thinking about. I think honestly, I was lacking in self-identity and who I truly was at my core for years. Okay, I'm not at all, this isn't a video where I'm just trying to, you know, crap on other people and bring other people down, because truthfully, I think I was lacking my own self-identity for such a long time. I was spending money and I was buying clothes and trying to live through an identity of someone that truly wasn't me. Like, the identity and the person that I was trying to portray was probably someone who lived in a high-rise building in a very large, busy, buzzing city like, you know, Paris, London, or New York or something like that. That is not my life. That is not who I am at my core. And it's just so interesting. I think what following certain creators and what being and spending a lot of time on social media following people with different lives led me to do, you know, it led me to really question, do I even want to live in Australia anymore? Like, ugh, I hate living near the beach. And I just remember back then when I was really in it, I thought I wanted to move to New York. I thought I wanted to live in an apartment. I remember almost despising that I lived in Australia and hated that I lived by the beach, so close to nature. And I wanted to give that up to live in a big bustling city like New York, when truthfully, I have been to New York multiple times and I liked it, but actually the first time I really had quite a horrible time. The second time I didn't mind it, but I just think it's really interesting that social media has almost warped my idea of what actually makes me happy and what I actually enjoy. And it's so funny, you know, I used to kind of think, oh, well, maybe I need to move to London, like, you know, to kind of get this whole fashion thing off the ground, to become that girl, that fashion girl. I need to move to New York. I need to move to London. When I visited London, truthfully, I had a really horrible time, okay? And again, it's nothing against London, but I didn't like the weather. It was really busy, and it was the smell of the smoke and the hustle and bustle. It was just nothing that I enjoyed. And similar to New York, that's how I felt when I visited New York. And again, that's nothing against those cities. It's just my identity is not that. That's not my identity. And it's so strange looking back on it that I had almost, I think, kind of warped. I was just in a very warped sense of identity and truly not actually knowing who I was and not even knowing what I truly enjoyed. You know, I think a lot of it was tied to the people's lives that I was watching and the social media consumption that I was taking part in. And I think it had a lot to do with my little midlife crisis and kind of lacking in that self-identity. And I honestly wonder if, you know, I think up until our generation, I don't know if, I mean, I've heard of the term midlife crisis. I honestly wonder if the whole quarter life crisis thing is brought on by this lack of self-identity because of our constant consumption and our constant viewing and watching other people's highlight reels and other people's lives. You know, we never had, I mean, I wish I could say we, but I was never part of that. You know, my parents' generation and the generation before them, they never really saw what other people on the other side of the world looked like or what they lived like, or, you know, the only way they really would have seen it was when they traveled, but they never really got as much of an in-depth look into other people's lives. You know, you never got what we get today with reality TV. I'd go so far as to say that Instagram and social media is almost more detrimental to our mental health and to our self-identity than what reality TV is. I think reality TV is its own beast, and I partake in a little bit of reality TV from time to time, but I do think that social media is its whole other beast, in the sense of we are fed so much, and we almost are bombarded with like hundreds, thousands of images and videos and content, and just a peek into other people's lives and other people's identity, that I almost wonder if we aren't taking enough time, because I know definitely for sure I wasn't taking enough time to really wonder, well, who am I? Who am I at my core? What is my identity? Who do I want to be? Who do I want to ultimately be? And where do I feel like I thrive, and where do I feel the happiest? What traits do I exhibit when I feel the happiest? Maybe I'm just going way too deep in it, but it's something I've really been thinking about lately, this whole lack of self-identity that I feel like our generation is really grappling with and almost battling at the moment. And I think it really comes down to the rise of social media. And I think maybe it's more common. I mean, obviously men and boys have their own battles to deal with, and I can only really speak from the experience of being a woman and a young girl growing up with social media. But I do think it's especially difficult for young girls and women who use social media. And I guess I just want to pose this question to you of, do you think that social media has warped or warps women's identities, or has warped your self-identity? Or do you think it makes it harder for you to come to terms with your identity and who you are? And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with shifting your identity. I don't think there's anything wrong with making changes. Like, I'm all for, and I advocate for making changes. But I think we've gone a bit too far when every season we're talking about entering a new identity and being a new person. I just think it's a little bit too much. I think there's an element there where we have to obviously want to strive and grow and change, but I also think that who we are at our core, who we are, it's almost like you have to come to terms with that and just kind of draw back into that self-love. And there's nothing wrong, like I said, with wanting to grow and change and strive for more, but at the end of the day, also loving yourself is very, very important. And sometimes I almost can hear a bit of an undertone in some of these videos and this content online of kind of striving for a new identity and trying to be that girl and that woman. I almost hear a little bit of an undertone of, and again, look at me trying to psychoanalyze, I don't know these people, maybe it's just my own stuff, but I almost hear a little bit of like, well, maybe there's a little bit of self-love lacking there, because there's a lot of creators online who I see and I've viewed talking about shifting their identity every 3 months and wanting to be that girl and that person and striving to be someone else. So yeah, a lot that I just threw at you just then, I'm well aware. These are all just things in my mind that I'm just like word vomiting at you, and I'd really love to hear truly what your input is and what your thoughts are and your opinions are on this topic. Because yeah, I just wonder, if these are things that I felt like I've experienced, and looking back, how lost and how uncertain I felt, and God, even just about something frivolous as my style, let alone who I actually was. I wonder if it was tied to my level of social media consumption. I wonder if there is a correlation between how much time someone spends on social media and how much self-identity they feel, or how assured they feel within themselves. So yeah, I'd really love to hear what your thoughts are on this topic. I know I just threw like a bunch at you and I'm sorry, but I really would love for this to be an open-ended discussion. And I've just word vomited a bunch at you. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on this and kind of continue the conversation in the comments. And if you have anything that you want me to kind of elaborate on or just do another video on, if you have any video ideas, please share with me those in the comments down below as well. I'd love to hear from you. I'm gonna have another one linked for you right here. If you haven't had enough of me just yet, feel free to join me over there. Thank you so much for joining me in today's video, and I'll see you in my next one.